You're listening to Autodesk's Digital Builder Podcast, a show that inspires construction professionals to innovate and use technology to improve how they build our world. I'm Eric Thomas, and I've been working in construction for nearly a decade. And now I have the privilege to sit down with industry trailblazers to hear how they're solving construction's biggest challenges and redefining the future of the built environment. Welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I am your host, Eric Thomas. Today, we are coming to you live from Autodesk's offices in San Francisco. And I am joined by Ron Arana, the chief operator at Arana Group, to talk about the connection to community in the construction industry. And I think it goes without saying that by default, the nature of the work that we do has a deep community tie. But I think we can go deeper and be more intentional there. And so that's what we're going to talk about today and a whole lot more. So Ron, I think I know the answer to this first question for you. How you doing today? You feeling good?
Feeling incredible. Very thankful for the opportunity and great to be here at the Autodesk HQ in San Francisco.
Yeah, man, it's great to host you. I really enjoyed our kickoff call when we met a couple of weeks ago, and I've been looking forward to this conversation because it's such an important topic, and I think we're almost stewards for the communities that we live in and work in. I'm really excited to hear more about the work that you and your organization are doing and how you connect to the local community here in the Bay Area. Tell me a bit more about how the Arana Group really intentionally integrates community impact in the projects that you do and the work that you decide to follow.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. Again, coming live from Arana Group. I'm a second generation builder in San Francisco, and this is my hometown. So it's a little personal on that note, but we definitely integrate community into our projects through many ways. I would say, first of all, working with a lot of subcontractors and suppliers locally, building relationships with them, advertising in that sense of upcoming projects. Another good way is workforce development, working to try to train that next generation with the skills necessary to advance the industry.
I love that. And your point about the subcontractor integration, that's huge. I mean, everything in construction is relationships driven. And I think project managers and project executives, more often than not, I feel like they're almost relationships managers, both in the teams that they manage, the other companies that they work with, the owners. I mean, can you think of another industry that would have 20 or 30 different companies deployed to a single project location at one time? There's not many. Like, it's a very unique circumstance.
There's not many, yeah. And in its business model, in a B2B way, it is kind of like partnership to partnership because you're building it together. It's not just one company that's doing all the work. You got to synchronize and be on the same page.
Give me some examples. Can you tell me a little bit about some of these projects that you've worked on that do have deeper community ties and, just really kind of exemplify everything we're talking about here today?
One of the main projects that sticks out to me is a recent project in San Francisco that we've completed. It's the Hunters Point Building 101, not only for its history, but for kind of what the building has turned into, and then the work that we did inside the building and how we connected with the community to make the work happen. Hunters Point Shipyard Building 101 was an old Navy admin building during the World War II era.
There's a lot of that in the Bay Area, too.
There's a lot of that. And through time, the building was decommissioned and it was repurposed by kind of a community of artists. And it might be one of the largest kind of artist community buildings and centers in the United States still to this day.
Really?
But think about it as like a WeWork for artists. So in this building now, you've got artists, you've got painters, you've got sculptors, you've got makers, all kind of within their studio coexisting in this building. Now, you got to imagine this building is over 100 years old, so there's a lot of pieces that were falling apart. Nonetheless, we came across this opportunity and governed by many city agencies, state agencies, and even some federal agencies with a little bit of involvement from the Department of Commerce. We came across this, and the project scope was essentially the main piece was to build these artists a common gallery space. So they can have a space where they can pin their work up, and they can essentially a gallery where they can sell their works. And along with that, there were miscellaneous tenant improvements, upgrading restrooms, exterior building improvements, life safety upgrades to make the building a little bit more comfortable. The scope was very unique. And working within a building that's full of artists is also pretty unique within itself.
Oh, for sure.
But from the Arana Group standpoint, what we really tried to do was there were certain goals that we had to meet with local subcontracting requirements, and we tried to exceed that goal, which we did. We had a great outreach. It was more than an outreach. It was a conversation with a lot of local vendors, relationships that we had, several walkthroughs, some hand holding.
There always is a little bit of that.
Yeah. And then there was also kind of like an aspect of workforce development, right? The project provided obviously a building opportunities, bringing in newer teammates into the project so they could kind of learn about the construction process. So in of itself, it was a unique owner. It was a unique process to kind of integrate that community. But overall, it was great. I think the project was really successful. Very interesting as we went through the course of construction, because you can, again, imagine in a 100-year-old building, when you start to demo some walls, you're going to find some pretty interesting things.
Yeah, no as-built to take a look at. It's just all surprise, surprise.
Exactly.
What's in here today?
Which was great in of itself. And then the final product, I mean, obviously we had our clients with the local agencies and the state and the federal, but the artists themselves and what they have now as a pinup space to essentially have this gallery, to sell their work, to have their open studios. I mean, it was incredible. So it was kind of a full 360 experience in that sense.
That's really cool. And the first general contractor I worked for did mostly federal work. So I'm very familiar with the logistics of, the multiple layers and checkpoints and requirements to find all of these diverse and local small businesses to support the project. And that can be difficult at times. And I think, as a prime contractor in the Bay Area, I think that probably is a little bit easier than folks who, might live in the Midwest or some other parts of the country where the requirements are harder to fulfill. Can you tell me a bit more about just the logistics? Like, how do you go about vetting and sourcing and finding all of these smaller companies that you do work for to meet all these requirements?
That's a great question. Just like any, mid-sized to large GC, we have our database of pools. But this project was unique in its sense because it did require, in San Francisco, we call it an LBE, a local business enterprise. There was an LBE requirement, and there was also a SBE requirement with the state. But I think Arana Group had the advantage because we're pretty involved in that LBE community, the local business enterprise. So we know a lot of subcontractors, vendors, and suppliers that perform all types of scopes of work, from metals to glass to framing to, what have you. And you're right. I mean, in San Francisco and in the Bay Area, we do have a large pool. There is a lot of talent. I always kind of tell people this about small business. Just because it's a small mom and pop doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
Some of these small mom and pops or even small businesses themselves can operate even better than a mid-size or larger subcontractor.
And they care deeply too. Like,
absolutely about their work. There's a lot of pride in the work that they build for their community, for the area, and keeping that relationship, So there's a lot of layers to it. And that's something that I think I'm really passionate about as well. It's just giving that opportunity to those smaller underdogs or mom and pops or small businesses or what have you on that point, on a business standpoint, but also from kind of just the general ecosystem, because they really give back. They operate in the city or in San Francisco. So they're spending their money on buying groceries here, and they're also hiring locally. So it's kind of feeding, this ecosystem, what have you, in that sense.
It makes sense. I mean, you build on that both within just the talent that you're hiring and the fact that the people are privileged enough to build for their own local community. And not everybody has that privilege, especially if they're, traveling sometimes out, maybe far out of state for different projects and everything. And so being able to retain that local community connection, it's quite cool. There's one other project I think you mentioned when we spoke last is just a great example of this community connection. Can you tell us a bit more about that as well?
This project was for a nonprofit called Family Connections. And what we did was essentially build a secondary headquarters in a specific area in San Francisco, the Excelsior District, which is nearby where my brother and I grew up. So, there was kind of that special connection. But this project in itself, it was a very special relationship with the owner. We had a great relationship with the architect. There was funding coming in from the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. And ultimately, the final user are kids from the neighborhood, kids from the area that are underserved. So there was an extra kind of layer of that within the project. And I think that everybody kind of took that in the back of their mind. So they might have been building with a little bit more passion or intent, which was great. So what it essentially was a kind of a full building improvement project. I would say about 5,000 square feet. more tenant improvement. That was a little bit of interior building improvement, but it was an old, I think before it was an old church. And what we essentially did was we kept the shell of the building, we gutted out the interior. We worked hand in hand with a great architecture firm in the city, another small, I wouldn't call it mom and pop, but small business.
Yeah.
And we worked very closely with the owner to program this space to serve the kids in the area. So it was great.
That one sounds like it has a really deep tie too, and it's pretty cool that you grew up in the area and can just help folks that are living in the area that might not have all of the support that everybody else does. So that's a really cool connection. I want to know a bit more about how do you build and design with the right intent when you're working on spaces like this, and just really intentionally to support the communities that you're serving? Like, how do you make sure that what you build, folks can use it in the intended purpose when you started out at the beginning of the project?
I think it really just comes down to listening. In the beginning of the process, the earlier we kind of get in and the more we listen to stakeholders, community members, kind of end users, and we take in what they say and implement it somehow through the process and through the building, that really makes a difference. I mean, as basic as it sounds, taking notes through the course. And that's how we've been operating. So that's led us to build these really successful projects. And, this one especially, I mean, from the first conversations that we had of the project to the end, when the kids are utilizing all the spaces and the little play area in the back, I mean, it all comes full circle. So
I love it. What advice would you give to others out there listening who want to deepen the connection that their company has to the local community? Like, what would you suggest that they focus on, or like, I guess, where would you get started?
I would say research. There's a lot of ways to get involved, whether it be through volunteer work, whether it be through engaging with some of these nonprofits, whether it just be getting kind of your team and your company involved, like in a Turkey Day feed or something like that. Starting like that small can really lead you to the path that you want to build. And I think ultimately it's kind of about like what you want to do, what you want to give back, which way do you want to do it? And in the sense of the company, what do you want to get out of this? Do you want more local engagement? Do you want to be more embedded in community projects that serve with a little bit more intent? I think it varies.
I like that point too, as far as like what do you expect, and not in a unfair, selfish way by any means, but being really focused and pointed in choosing, okay, where do we want to go here?
Right.
I think being intentional up front with anything. I mean, you can apply this to technology selection or partners that you work with, like all of that due diligence up front of what do you want to accomplish and achieve. I think that definitely will help focus folks in a way that will make their involvement and intent a lot more impactful as the project moves forward.
Yeah, that's the right word.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I can tell this passion is not going to be limited to showing up at work. Can you tell me a bit about how this community involvement and impact shows up in your personal life as well?
Yeah, there are several organizations that I think with intent that I volunteer towards. There's also not only just local, but other kind of business communities that I've joined that have helped me and kind of navigate through the course. So I'll talk about some of the organizations that I'm involved with. The first one that I'll highlight is Rebuilding Together San Francisco. It is a chapter of the larger Rebuilding Together. And ultimately, it is a mission-driven nonprofit that is essentially looking to help those in need that need repairs, whether it be a senior citizen that needs a new fence and can't afford it, or it can be a community center that's looking to paint one of their main conference rooms so that teachers can have a more vibrant space. And the great thing about Rebuilding Together is that we fundraise, and we take a lot of those dollars that we fundraise into a special day called the Rebuilding Day. And the Rebuild Day is not only just happening in San Francisco, but it's happening all across the country.
Nice.
So this year for our Rebuild Day, I was assigned to the Persida Valley Community Center. And it was just an amazing experience. It was my first one as a board member, and I was able to join this wonderful team. We had a lot of engagement from UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, who brought their team in. But what we essentially did was this community center, again, serves children, underserved children. And they had a backyard that was just kind of deteriorated. And we wanted to bring that back to life
Nice.
so that the students had not only their indoor spaces where they learn and they play, but they had their exterior backyard where they can enjoy the sun or some fresh air. Man, I'll tell you, within those 2-3 weeks, especially in that rebuild day, we got so much done, and we essentially brought that exterior backyard back to life and did some good for the kids. So that's yeah, that was great.
I like it. It sounds like there's just a real strong focus on local community in this project too, even though it's a nationwide organization. Like you still get to focus on impacts that really touch the folks that are around you every single day, which is really cool.
Absolutely. So that's great. I mean, this is my first year as a board member, and I've just come to meet so many great people, and the impact of these projects, again, just goes so far. So this is kind of a personal passion. There's another organization that I can talk about too. It's called the SFLBBA, San Francisco Latino and Black Builders Association. That came about maybe, 4 or 5 years ago, but that's another organization that I'm pretty involved in. It operates as a think tank, and it's pretty unique in itself to San Francisco. And I would say the Bay Area, maybe 60 miles outside of the city, because we have some industry professionals that join, but it essentially is a group of contractors, architects, engineers, subcontractors, vendors, and suppliers that come together as a think tank to talk about industry, to talk about the market, to talk about opportunities. But not only that, looking at how it is difficult to do small business in the San Francisco Bay Area. So we think about ways to work with local government and recommend policy to make it a little bit easier to do business and a little bit, friendlier for companies such as us.
I love that. I mean, you have all that knowledge firsthand. And so who better to go to the different agencies and local regulators and such to have those conversations to say, I've experienced these challenges firsthand, whether it's tied to regulation or anything else. Say, here's how you can support these organizations, because all these communities want small businesses. They don't want exclusively giant corporations. Not to say that there's any, issue with that, but just being able to give everybody an opportunity and being intentional about the structure behind it, I think it makes sense. So it's cool that you're able to bring in all these folks, and there's a lot of really smart people in the Bay Area. So it's cool that you have a chance to bring everybody together like that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of industry expertise and people that just bring so much. So I see it in that way. And I also see it kind of, because there's such a diverse demographic in ages, I see it as kind of a way of teaching the younger ones in the group of what's out there, of how to make a difference, of how to make an impact, maybe learn a little bit more about how to run a small business. So it's very fulfilling in that sense.
And the mentorship part is so important in encouraging the younger generations to get involved in our industry, because, let's be real, we don't have enough people to do all the work that's necessary. Sometimes the industry doesn't have a great perception with young people as far as the opportunities available. And I think any opportunity to talk to folks and say, hey, look, here's some really cool work that you can do. You can be building for your community. You get to go walk down the street and tell your family, I built that. I had a big part in that. Yeah. And I think that really resonates for folks. But in addition to that, we also use some really cool technology in construction that I think folks are not necessarily aware of if they don't have a career path that's already sending them down that direction. And so there's a lot of work to do for folks to bring that awareness. And it sounds like that's a big part of some of the work that you're doing, which is awesome.
Yeah, I would say that's actually become another passion of mine is building awareness, just maybe exposing young students that you can have a career in this industry and actually make a great career. There are a lot of opportunities, whether you pick the professional services side or you pick the workforce side. There's so much. And amen to what you said about the tech, because the tech is kind of taking it to a whole nother level. With amazing things to the industry. So
the last 10 years has been a bit of a rocket ship in that regard. I remember when I first got out of college and joined my first general contractor, especially not having a construction background, I always say, there wasn't anything made for me. And that's really evolved, whether it's, laser scanning or 3D technology or AR and VR, or just the technology that helps us manage the information that we use every day. All of this has really impacted the way that we build, which is just fantastic, especially when we're struggling to figure out ways to fill all these gaps and make sure people can go home at a reasonable moment in the day too, and not work 12 hours every day, because that's not sustainable either.
Yeah, there's a lot of automation, and I think with the tech, from a software side or from a hardware side, that can get this next generation really excited about a potential career path. There is a large technology component to construction, and right now with AI or AGI, it's just going to take it to that next level.
Are there any other organizations that you're part of that you'd like to share a little bit more about as far as just that deep community involvement goes?
Yeah, there's another one that I'd like to highlight, and it's more of kind of a personal passion, but building towards career and giving back to children. One of them is it is the Olympic Club Foundation. I'm on a grants committee, and the Olympic Club Foundation essentially gives back to the underserved youth through sports to develop children and essentially provide them with leadership skills for their future.
Nice.
And I'm on the grants committee, so working with a lot of local organizations, sports-based, doing some fundraising and trying to provide these programs with maybe a little bit more equipment or additional funds for extra basketballs or whatever the case may be. But that's a kind of more of a passionate thing outside of construction, tied to it in kind of the same way that it's really teaching these youth through sports fundamental core values about responsibility, about teamwork, about listening, and how they can take that through the sports that they play on with them through life.
The teamwork aspect and the leadership aspects are so important too. And I think I played a little bit of sports very badly. I was very small in high school and it didn't go very well. But we learned a lot in just working together in a way that we hadn't prior to that, as being young people, as far as just having the experience. I mean, we might have a group project or something, but it's very different from collaborating in a sports environment. So yeah. I think that's definitely applicable, and I appreciate you kind of plugging that one too. It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Anybody out there listening might be interested in getting involved in either maybe some of these organizations or trying to understand how they can have more community impact themselves. Can you share some advice on how to get started and what you thought about before you started making choices in the organizations you got involved in?
Yeah, I think finding your passion, doing a lot of research and kind of testing the waters. There's a lot of volunteer opportunities. There's a lot of ways to kind of research about these organizations, and they are out there. One thing that I always like to kind of talk about also as a builder is that, we are entrepreneurs, and I've definitely found community in a lot of these other business scaling programs that exist and that we've participated in the local Bay Area, but on a national level too, highlighting Stanford's LBAM program, which is a tremendous business accelerator program. I think they're on cohort 19 right now. And another great one that we were selected to was Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur Access Network. Wonderful coaching program providing entrepreneurs from all across the nation coaching skills, resources, and community. This program was put together by two amazing women, Neat Reeder and Chris Hunter. And, being part of this community and this EAN family has exposed me to just so many different businesses, industries. Yeah, it's been great.
Well, it sounds like, I think even with the businesses that we were talking about earlier, being intentional when you start as far as, okay, how do I want to give back, or what am I most passionate about? Seems like an obvious starting point is you start making some of these choices like you have to figure out where you really want to focus your energy. And I have to say, I'm impressed. I mean, you are involved in a lot, both professionally and personally, and I am certain that it has a meaningful impact in the community that you live. So I appreciate you sharing and just giving some perspective on how others might be able to replicate some of the work that you've done. It's really cool.
It does. And I really, try to lead by example with passions and with involvement. But I also have two little girls at home that I'm really, trying to lead by kind of what I do and show them that giving back through service goes such a long way.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'm going to pivot here a little bit, and I can't help myself because I am a nerd by default as far as technology and construction tech goes. So I have to ask, is there any particular technology right now that you're really excited about, whether it's, hardware or software? Like what really has you fired up right now in the AEC space?
Oh, there's so much.
That's what I like to hear.
But if I can pick, I mean, I know just like any other industry that's being disrupted by AI and AGI, there's so much happening there that's automating processes. And I think just making construction a little bit more intelligent and a lot more accurate in that sense through the technology. The AI is obvious, but from a hardware, software standpoint, I would say hardware wise, robotics right now, I've been seeing some really interesting things, especially coming out of the Bay Area with the high tech of robots that are hanging drywall or spraying drywall. Or I think there's one right now that's kind of like a go-kart that essentially feeds into some type of software and does layouts for you for your framing. All that stuff excites me because I think that's the future. And it kind of ties back into like what's going to get this next generation excited about construction and have them see, this whole new avenue that there is a big tech factor to it and you can make a great career out of it. So, yeah.
I love both those examples. I think you're talking about Canvas and Dusty Robotics.
Exactly.
Yeah, both of them are doing really cool stuff. It's great to see, I think the accuracy, as you're pointing out, behind that, because so much of the waste in construction is just having to do rework and rebuilding things. And granted, some of those change conditions come from the owner walking in and going, I want it different now. And you have to. But some of that does come from having outdated information or building things in a way that didn't really meet the requirements. And you just got to rip it out and do it again. And anything you can do to add more certainty into what you're building from the start, I think that's a huge win. So I love both those examples. It's cool.
It's a huge win. And there's also like some type of stigma like, well, look, if they're able to automate this, then that's going to take away jobs. I mean, I personally think that it's going to create other jobs, other different jobs. And it's just really exciting to see where it's going.
Yeah, I think the way that we work is going to evolve, but the shortage of staff across the board, and this is a global challenge, not just one that the United States is facing.
Yeah.
We're not eliminating jobs by automating and bringing in technology. We're changing the way that we work. We're doing things at scale that a single person couldn't do without the technology. And then we get to iterate from there. And so I think folks are going to have to maybe sometimes relearn the way that they get things done. But the end state is going to be better for the industry, better for the people working in the industry, and I think better for the environment as well, long term.
So too, that's great.
All right, I got one more question for you, Ron, and it's one I ask everybody. It's my favorite. What is one tool that you use on every project you work on?
There's a handful of technology platforms that I can pick from. There's a couple actual tools, lasers, tape measures, but I'm going to go a little bit different. And I say one tool is just listening.
I like it. It comes back to what you said about the community involvement that you have as well, as far as really truly understanding the requirements and needs of the end user. Because I think we've all been in the situation where something was brought to us to use or experience or supposedly help the way that we get our work done. And then we realized this doesn't meet my needs at all. And then it goes unused. And that's unfortunate. And I think to your point earlier, the more you listen at the start of these projects, especially when they're here to help the communities that you're serving, I think the ROI is tremendous. So it makes a bunch of sense.
Tremendous. Yeah. Great.
All right, Ron. Well, I appreciate you joining me for this conversation and another episode of Digital Builder. Everybody out there listening, you've heard me say this before, but I'm going to beg and plead, please tell your friends. Word of mouth is one of the biggest ways that we get this show brought out to the world. And it makes a big impact when we're able to, just tell your friends and tell your colleagues, let them know, hey, you should check out Digital Builder. Of course, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And if you got a question for me or just want to send a note and tell me what you think about an episode, the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Eric Thomas that works at Autodesk. And until next time, goodbye.